Welcome everybody. Just remember, remind everyone that this meeting is recorded. And we're just going to start with the council prayer. Father, we ask your blessings on the people who have gathered here and who have been called to lead the communities in which we live and work. Guide us to ask how we can best serve you and your people, and to remember that we are all neighbours who are blessed to live in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Grant us the wisdom and courage to know and do what is right, good and true, and that we may be guided by your light and spirit to build community, ensure justice for all, and love each other. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. Okay, so we've got a couple of apologies today. So Mayor Tracy Collis and Councillor Alison Franklin. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Gilmore and Councillor Long. Those in favour? Against? Carried. We don't have anyone in here for public forum today. Are there any items that are not on the agenda? No. Are there any declarations of conflicts of interest in relation to this meeting? No. Okay, we've got confirmation of the minutes for the Wednesday, the 30th of August. As circulated, be confirmed as a true and accurate record of the meeting. Can I have someone please move these a true and correct record? Councillor Johns and a seconder. Councillor Sutherland. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Okay, we've got community board and community committee reports. We're going to take these together today. We've got two sets of minutes, the Denver Community Board and the Ikitahuna Community Board. Can I have a mover to move us into those agendas? Councillor Johns and Councillor Gilmore. Okay, we're just going to go through the minutes. From the Ikitahuna Community Board. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. Page 11. Page 12. And page 13. Can we have someone move that there's a true and correct record? Oh, someone, sorry.
Recommendation is to receive them.
Oh, yeah, okay. Can we have a mover and seconder to receive the minutes? Councillor Wallace, Councillor Cheese. Go on to Denver Community Board. Page 14. Page 15. Page 16. Page 17. Page 18. Page 19. We have a mover and a seconder to accept those minutes. Councillor Long and Councillor Wards. Okay, we're going to move into reports. And report 9.1, adoption of the Play Active and Recreation and Sports Strategy. And we've got Jessie McKenzie to take us through this report. It's been a long time coming, Jessie. Really, the day has come. So I'll hand it over to you.
So I'll take the report as read for the most part. Since the last report was brought to council, we were asked to go to each of the community committees as well as the 2 community boards. And so in the consultation, you'll see that we received positive feedback from Danavert Community Board and Ekatahuna Community Board. You'll see the feedback listed, bulleted pointed from Explore Paiatua. And then you'll see Positively Woodville had submitted a letter. So with Explore Paiatua's feedback, we made the changes as they have pushed through. As you can see, Positively Woodville, there wasn't specific, so just taking that. Aside from that, that is the updates. So it's now over to you for any questions or.
Do we have any questions or comments from the floor about the past strategy? Councillor Johns.
I guess my concern is to what extent will council be bound by this document and the recommendations made in this document? And that's, well, start the discussion.
So it is a strategy and it's just a 30-year outlook. We have suggested or proposed that it just be reviewed with each LTP cycle. So that 3-yearly look and reset or check over, make sure that it's still fit for purpose. If that answers your question. So not bound because it would be under continuous review.
We'll just go to the CE. He's just going to comment before we go to you, Councillor Johns.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And yes, the Jessie's given us a good overview of what it actually means. But just to add to that, you know, the decisions will still get made through an annual plan or an LTP process. So without it going through those processes, there is no commitment. There could be questions around, you know, the outlook going into the future, and I believe there's been comments around funding that because it doesn't directly link to the strategy, but I don't personally think that would create any issues in that space. And as Jessie said, it is a strategy with a future focus outlook, but like most strategies, not everything is always achieved within those strategy, but they're certainly goals and would provide us with discussion points at least.
Yeah, it's just to give us guidance for the future. Councillor Johns.
So, Erin, I accept that. I guess my concern is that for 5 years down the track, that future councils may use this document as a basis for making decisions that it was, you know, e.g. decided in 2023 that was the case, that there would be a concentration on 2 hubs, for example. Concern is that should that thought continue, it may adversely affect the financing of various things in, e.g. Woodville, Ekatahuna and elsewhere. And I would hate to think that that might be the case.
So he's just going to make comment.
Yeah, through you, Deputy Mayor. That could be the case if we're to be perfectly honest around and being transparent. You know, the strategy is to help decide what does happen into the future. But as Jessie said, you know, if things do change with new council that comes in, they have the opportunity to change it, the strategy anyway. So they could update it at that point. So even if it wasn't in there, they could put it back in. So it's a live document that will be updated over a 3-year sort of cycle, as all strategies should.
Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Irina. I have a lot of sympathy for Councillor John's viewpoint with it. And I sort of did raise some concerns when this first came to one of the committees. But I guess a couple of specific questions, sort of following on a little bit from Councillor John's comments. I guess my particular concerns really revolve still around the information report. So some of the information that's contained within the information report, which is from page 17 onwards in the document. So I guess my question is if we do adopt this strategy, are we bound by anything at all that is past page 16? So anything at all that's in the information report. And I guess the reason why I say it is I know that that isn't necessarily part of the strategy, but it is the information that was sort of used to inform the strategy. And there are some concerning elements still in that part from my perspective. So are we bound by anything past page 16?
I'll get Jessie to comment on that.
I think with the strategies, it's always taking into consideration that it's what has gone into the information report is live for that time. So as we're able to reassess with each of those review periods, that's where that information can be updated. Similar could be, say, if you looked at participation rates across codes, like those things are going to change each year. So I would say that that just be reviewed and then updated as with each of those cycles. And that way it keeps fit for purpose and that it's not bound.
Councillor Gilmore.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And thanks, Jessie, for that. And I guess that's probably where some of those concerns come in, and it comes to how old some of that information is in there. So as we look at adopting it now and then thinking in future we can update that before we adopt again, we've almost not done this. We've almost not followed that process or that thought process for the adoption of the strategy. And what I mean by that is the information that is based in that information report that's informed the actual strategy is quite out of date. And I think that's part of my concerns with it. If that was more up to date, then perhaps it would have informed some changes within the strategy. But it is a concern that if we adopt it now, if that information report is still a part of it, we're adopting it based off old information.
Councillor Gilmore, can you specify what information is out of date?
Yeah, so I think that there's still some information about swimming pools in the information report, or is that being removed?
From what I understand, there may be some misunderstanding as to what's there. So the way that it's meant to read is that, yes, there is a community pool, council-owned pool, but there's also the school-owned pool. It's not saying that there's any sort of rationalization on the table. It's just saying that the two do exist in the same space, similar to Ekanahuna. So there's the Ekanahuna community pool as well as the school. Paotua has a school pool as well. It's just establishing that that is the supply, that is what it's available in the network. But in no means is it saying that to rationalize or close one or the other, if that helps address that worry.
Councillor Wallace.
Yeah, I just agree with point 6 of this, the conclusion, 6.1. And it says basically what Jessie has just been saying, Deputy Mayor Irina. I think the way that's written out basically covers off the questions that people are asking. I don't know if everyone's read 6.1.
Thanks, Councillor Wallace. Yeah, you're quite right. Can we go to Councillor Wards?
Thank you. Erin, it's more a comment rather than a question. Having been part of the working group, not quite from the start, but I managed to catch up as we went along. This has been a long journey, and I appreciate that it may appear that some of the information might be a little more dated, but I think he covered that off by saying that, you know, the ability during LTPs is to refresh. This was a snapshot at the time, and I think there are probably community groups and organisations that when they look at this in 2 or 3 years' time, I think that's out of touch now. The point I want to make is certainly reflect the conclusion there. I mean, that's pretty critical, that it was the principles and the decision-making criteria and values that are really important in this document. And I can't see a period of time changing the ability for us as a council who are sitting around the table to apply that decision-making matrix and reflect on the values and the principles from this. I would support this across the line, the adoption of it, knowing that every time a council sits around here in an LTP or annual planning process, see Brian's reflected on, there may be some more emphasis placed on 1 or 2 projects, but always coming back, have the ability to reflect on the matrix that is in here and the criteria that get applied to any of our long-term funding decisions.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Johns.
Deputy Chair, and yes, it's that conclusion in 6.1 that is what concerns me, and the specific part is the investment framework will assist with prioritisation, and that's the concern, that if the priorities go to certain areas, that forms the basis of that's the guts of the whole thing. And given that it's an extremely loose document, I know it covers a hell of a lot, and it's very difficult to. It's a very difficult strategy to develop, given the myriad of aspects within it. But I still retain great doubts about future council's decision making based on that statement there.
See Brian.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I guess the point is that it's our business. That's what councils do, regardless of it. We need to prioritise our investment, and that's why, you know, any key decisions do need to come back to this table to be made, and through, you know, generally through an LTP, but also annual plans. So that's what we do, and I guess the strategy is rightly saying that, because we can't do everything all at once. So what the next stage for us would be to convert this to action. So, you know, what does the next step look like in terms of the strategy? And that's maybe when more sort of questions could be looked at in terms of projects that are going to be prioritised. And an example of that is the Better Off Support package, where based on this strategy, we've got to identify funding to align with that, and those conversations will come out as a result of how we invest that as well. So it is a key aspect of the strategy, is the prioritisation. I think with any strategy, though, to be honest.
Councillor Johns.
Yeah, I accept that, Brian, but that's the problem. I accept what you're saying, but that prioritisation is clearly defined and reasonably clearly defined. I'm regards to them.
You see.
Prioritization is, it's not set, so there's priority projects document, but it says at the top that it's just ones that came up through consultation, so it's what the community have advised us that they would like. However, we need to ensure that we follow the council process, which would be, it would come through the long-term planning, it would come through annual planning, so those projects will come in front of council, and then the idea is that using the investment framework and the principles is that councilors could then evaluate and determine by your accord of what that priority project should look like. So what's listed there, view it more as it's what the community has advised us that they would like, but it's not and by any means any sort of order or saying that we're committed to doing it. That's where the long-term plan process would give effect, or annual plan.
Thank you, GC. Councillor Gilmore.
And look, and thank you for all of that information. And I certainly don't want to devalue the work that you've put in, or that the group have put in through to it. And I certainly think that sport and rec is something that we need to, I guess, identify ways to be getting people more involved in our district and those things, and have a good transparent mechanism of how to do that. So I do see some value when it comes to that. Where some of my concerns are is, and this was obviously happening prior to my time of being on council, so I wasn't involved in any of that consultation piece. But in two of our towns, going to two different meetings in our towns, Explore Paeatua being one, there was some serious concerns raised, and I know that you've reflected and updated that on the document, but I guess of how this whole strategy has landed, and I guess how much effect we'll be able to give it to. I also reflect on the feedback. I wasn't at the meeting, but the letter and the feedback that was endorsed by Positively Woodville, being the community committee. And although I don't agree with everything in that letter, to be frank, it does indicate to me that we haven't necessarily brought all of our communities on board right throughout with the strategy. Now, when we're looking at it, I subscribe to a strong view that if we have a strategy in place, that we actively work to achieving all of the strategy. We have it there. We all buy into it, including our towns, hopefully, and we try and achieve it all. And as it lands now, definitely looking past page 16 at the information report, but as it looks now, I almost think it devalues some of our other strategies. And I don't think I can support it in the form that it's in.
Thanks, Scott. What we'll do is we'll put this the strategy to the vote to see if we're going to be recommending its adoption today.
We do that.
Councillor Wards.
Yeah. Can I, through you, with respect, Councillor Johns, I know that you're concerned around the statement and the conclusion about the framework that's used. So if we look to page 11 of the strategy, which is page 42 on the 11.2, the principles by which we would make a decision around investing in any projects across the district have those elements to our decision. So, for instance, if we're focusing on Woodville, the highest weighting still goes to a demonstrated need in that community. And I mean, accessibility for all is probably one, and strategic fit's probably the lowest. So what I'm just trying to explore with you, why might you be concerned with that particular decision matrix for us to decide when we're inundated with all the projects that every community will want? This framework was designed to try and help us decide amongst the myriad of those using those principles.
Councillor Johns.
Thanks, Fiona. That's fine, but if it comes down to a contestable situation refunding, thing required in Pahia Tour, which within the document here, is to enhance the hub, but there's something e.g. in Woodville that wanted or desired. It doesn't matter what the demonstrated community need in Woodville is. It's still up against the demonstrated need in Pahia Tour. And if council's stated view via this document is that the hub concept is paramount, that's where the money will go.
That's not what I've taken out of that. I mean, there is an element of the hub and spokes approach reflected in here, and there is the reshaping the delivery. But I can't see that as, we would still have to, at every LTP or annual plan, still go through that investment framework for each of those elements.
Excuse me. If I could use as an example, an e.g. swimming pools, talk about within the document of providing transport to Pahia Tour. And it's mentioned in 2 or 3 places. The kids in Woodville, the parents won't transport them to Pahia Tour to swim, for example, let alone other things. The deprivation index is such, and the sort of people there, they're not A, not interested, B, can't afford it, won't do it. So those kids will be deprived. And it's all very well to say that a better facility will be in Pahia Tour, they just won't be able to use it. And if some transport is provided, it might be, say, a bus. They'll take a bus down at 9 o'clock in the morning, come back at 3 in the afternoon. Well, that may suit some kids, but it may not suit others that might have something else in the afternoon. They need to be back by 11. And in theory, it all sounds good, put on some transport. The reality is that it won't work, in my view.
Councillor Wards.
I mean, through you, Deputy Mayor, I believe that decision-making framework won't necessarily prevent Woodville from having or continuing to have swimming pools. What it may lead us to is, if we were by Pahia Tour, Woodville, Ekahuna and Northwood to have covered heated pools, that might be useful for us to be able to say, well, actually, because those principles, we don't want to be duplicating many. And that's where I think the hub and spoke and the rationalisation in 2 spots rather than 5, where some of these principles will help us land. I mean, when I looked at this strategy yet again, after our discussions around the LTP stuff, it doesn't, in my view, discredit us still having facilities, swimming pools in each of our towns. We might just have to say, right, we're going to focus our investment for covered pools into and hopefully align them with a multi-hub. I appreciate that you're listening somewhere where, and obviously that's where the Woodville community picked up on and provided with feedback, is that they can't see the continuation of their pool in here. And I think that needs to be, that's addressed in LTP in my view.
Well,
I'll just let Brian comment first.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And just further to that the debate you're having now, Councillor Johns, you could still have within the LTP. And to be honest, someone may suggest what you've just talked about in terms of, but it doesn't go, you can't then go, you can't debate that, Councillor Johns, because of this document. You'll continue representing your wards. The LTP is a process that you must follow anyway. So nothing in any strategy really would prevent you having your own argument to stop that or advocate for that.
And if anything was going to be closed down, it'll have to go through council and then public consultation. Councillor.
I accept that. However, what's the point of this if that's the case? Could I just, before you answer that, talking about pools, in the document it talks about duplication of pools in Woodville, and there is a heated covered pool at the school that basically could be used. The reality is, I mean, people talk about these heated covered pools. Woodville doesn't want a heated covered pool. It wants an open air pool where the kids on a stinking hot day can go and have a swim, lie in the sun for 10 minutes, jump in the water again and have a lot of fun. The last thing they want to do is go to this a covered building at the school. Ask any of the kids. And that's why I have my doubts about the Paetua's proposal. I'm not quite sure that all the kids really want a covered pool. However, that's another argument.
Yeah.
I must answer the first question.
See, Brian.
Just answer the first question by the point. You always need a starting point, though. You do need a point where you can initiate the conversations. You can start planning for what the future might look like, and it might be that officers can then bring something to a process. Then the debate can happen, and the decisions are made by around this table, not by officers, but it gives us. So for this, we would need to convert into action. So there'll be stuff that comes out of that, out of the strategy that we can bring back. But ultimately, any decisions around funding and where we do, build more, build less, still has to go through our formal processes. But we've got a starting point at least.
I think it's Councillor Johns. I think it's just to guide us where we want to move to in the future, and just having a few ideas from the community, from those community consultations, of what they want really. And I do, just stepping back a little bit to Councillor Gilmore's comments. We did have a couple of meetings in Woodville, and I attended. There was one at the school, and then there was one at the library, where all groups were invited to give their feedback on the strategy and any projects that they had coming forward. So the Johns, and then we'll wrap it up after that.
I think I was at both those meetings, and probably there were only three or four of us there. Certainly all organisations were not involved. And in fact, out of the 27 or so sports organisations in the district that were sent questionnaires, only 37% responded. So it's not a very good view of the needs of the district when only 37% have responded, but that's beside the point, I suppose.
I'm sure they were all invited to those meetings, and they were all sent those surveys, and they were followed up. So it was really their choice. And it probably didn't help it because there was another consultation that ran just before this one. And I think they were sort of a little bit over the consultation stuff. DMCI had their one running prior to this one. And so a lot of the information, we did get some from DMCI's, what was it called, you see?
The Danenberg multi-sport feasibility study.
So we did use some of that information, plus we sent out another lot. So they may have been over consultated. So that may be why we had a low uptake on the survey. Okay, Councillor Sutherland.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Just before we go, a number of these strategies, they are living documents, and they will be added to, or things will change. And as the next council arrives, things will change that'll affect these strategies greatly. And there is some lack of engagement, and that happened in Dannevirke as well. Some lack of engagement with some of the sports groups, and that's been a long-standing thing, not just with this, but going back decades. Really, we've always had difficulty when it comes to this area, but we needed to start somewhere, and we needed a footprint really to move on. And I think when it comes to significant decisions, they're going to have to go through annual plan and long-term plans when it comes to the finances. But I think if we just get bogged down trying to cover every possibility for each sport, we'll never get these strategies passed. I think we've got to probably be. I think I'm with Councillor Steve. I think that I don't see your concerns about the investment statement in that conclusion myself one little bit. I think these are wide enough to handle those issues. But I take note of Woodville's concerns in the letter and the other statements. But I think I don't think the doors are slammed. I'm not as fearful as you are about the future changes to some direction but we're very bogged down on pools as usual. The pool, but there's a lot of stuff, a lot of very good stuff in the strategy, and it covered a lot of information, massive amount of information. I think it's very helpful for us going forward. We're going to have something.
Okay, we're going to put it to the vote. So those for moving this strategy, adopting the strategy, can you raise your hands? Oh, sorry. Can I have a mover and a seconder first, please? Councillor Wallace, seconded by Councillor Chase. And now we'll put it to the vote. So those who vote to adopt the PARS strategy, can you raise your hands? 5 versus 2. Thank you, councillors.
My vote recorded.
Councillor Gilmore and Councillor Johns are against. Jesse? So the next report is the appointment of additional list members for the District Licensing Committee. So we've got staff member James Single. Present this report.
Good afternoon, everyone. Through the Deputy Mayor, this report can be taken as read. Happy to answer any questions.
Do you have any questions? Councillor Chase.
Can I tell the appointments, mate?
James, are you able to answer that, please?
Yeah, through the Deputy Mayor, well, this is actually the second paper that's come to council. The first one was actually asking to advertise for additional DLC members, but Her Worship the Mayor thought that there was ample enough qualified people within the council to be able to put their names forward, and so she made a suggestion of the names that appear on this list.
Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Aaron. Yes, and I do remember this one. I believe at the time I suggested Councillor Franklin based off her experience. And I'm pleased to see this paper come back, Jim. I think these committees do work very well when elected members are a part of them. Elected members are elected to represent their communities. So if we have the ability to appoint from within, I think it's incumbent on us to do so. So I'm very in support of this paper.
Thank you, Councillor Gilmore. Councillor Wards.
Deputy Mayor, just a couple of comments through you. In 3.4, there's the mention of Tracy and Alison. I tried looking for the terms of reference for this committee. Does the term of reference preclude standing here?
Through Deputy Mayor, no, it doesn't. There there is a caveat where one member of council, an elected member, can take part on the committee at a time. So the committee makes up 3 members, but you can have as many as you like, as many people as you like on the list. So it's up to the chair to decide which other members are going to accompany him on in a hearing. So rather than have a very large list of people, which may only get picked once in a blue moon, it kind of makes sense to keep the number sort of small enough that everybody gets a turn at being able to exercise their learnings and whatnot. But as it stands at the moment, Councillor Sutherland is the deputy for the DLC. But should there be a committee required, then the chair would have to make a decision as to who he put on there if we were short of the 3 for the committee.
And supplementary to that one. Through you.
Would, given the last time this paper came up and the suggestion had been to advertise, but Mayor Tracy at the time said not, would we be challenged that her is on this list?
I'm not trying to do any conspiracy theories here, but this has to be a transparent process.
Yes, through the deputy mayor, I don't believe that there's any grounds to challenge. The only grounds that in the act is that a person may not be suitably qualified by experience. That is one of the determining factors. And as Mayor Tracy's got hearing experience, she well qualifies for the appointment.
Certainly not challenging those names. I just want to make sure the process is a.
I'll just see Brian to make a comment.
Through deputy mayor, yeah, and just to add to that, I think it was a council decision to come back to this paper, not the mayor's decision, although she voted in favour for it.
Oh, Councillor Sutherland.
Just before you move, excuse me, just a comment, Deputy Mayor, to Jim, the 4.4 just explains the act a little bit about meetings are not publicly notified, et cetera, But any objected, just so we know, perhaps here, any meetings, any applications are objected to are public meetings, and everyone can attend. They're not. We don't advertise them, but a lot of councils do advertise all their meetings. Actually, specifically the public ones, but the public meetings do have people attend, and the public are open to the public. The public is right; they don't have. Well, in fact, in a lot of councils, they do receive the minutes are available and agendas are available, but it's just the normal day-to-day stuff isn't open to the public, but the objected ones are, Jim. It isn't.
It's great.
It is an open, transparent public process where there's objections lodged. It's just another hearing, like a little court hearing, really. Yeah, I personally don't have too much objection to this. We are a bit short, we've only got 3 people really, and if one goes, if David Lee, who's the chairman at the moment, if David Lee, the chairman at the moment, is unavailable or ill or something, then it's the deputy chair who takes over, and under the act, it's the appointed councillor, isn't it, Jim? Or it's the appointed councillor. If we have 3 appointed councillors, well, I suppose it's up to David Lee to decide who will be the chair of those 3 councillors, is it?
Well, yes, that's right. And the horrible fact is, if one person's away, as it stands currently, we wouldn't have enough to form a committee. So that's why we're putting on a few extra spares.
Okay, can we have someone please move the recommendation? Councillor Gilmore, seconder. Councillor Long. All of those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Moved. Carried. Okay, so the next few reports, we've got a few road closures. So I'm going to hand it over to Brian to go through each road closure, and we'll need a mover and a seconder for each one. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm not going to go into these reports. It is an administrative process, but obviously we need to treat each one as a separate item. So I'll just hand back to you to go through them. Thanks, Deputy Mayor.
We have a mover and a seconder for the road closure of the Paetua for Paetua Incorporated, Explore Paetua Incorporated. Moved by Councillor Wallace, seconded by Councillor Gilmore. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. The next road closure is the Denver Chamber of Commerce for the Christmas parade. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Wallace, seconded by Councillor Wards. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. The next road closure is for the Targa Rally. Can we have a mover and a seconder for the Targa Rally? Moved by Councillor Sutherland, seconded by Councillor Gilmore. All those in favour, please say aye. Carried. The next road closure is for Ikitahuna, Our Town's Christmas Parade. Can we please have a mover? Councillor Gilmore, seconded by Councillor Chase. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. So item 9.7, the adoption of schedule of meetings for 2024. I'm going to hand that over to Ellie Dunn.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This report is to bring before you a proposed schedule of meetings for the 2024 calendar year. When constituting meetings of council, there are a number of ways we can do it. The most efficient way is to adopt the schedule ahead of time, because by adopting the schedule of meetings for the whole year and by myself providing you an email notifying you of that, we've done the whole notification for all the meetings for the year. And then I only have to re-notify if we change any. Otherwise, I'd have to send you emails before each meeting to formally notify you of them. Other ways we can call them is with extraordinary meetings, we get a requisition from the chairperson and then provide a formal notice from the chief executive to you to constitute them. And by adopting the schedule ahead of time, we've kind of circumventing the need to do those administrative steps. We've based the schedule on the regularity of meetings that were set in the terms of reference for each committees when they're adopted. If for any reason we need to change any, that can be changed by resolution or by the chairperson requisitioning that they change.
Any questions? Councillor Johns.
Thanks, Mayor. Ellie, does that mean there'll be no further correspondence from you to us as to meeting dates and times?
I'd like all these into our diary now.
You'll receive, if this resolution goes through, you'll receive a few hundred invites from me for you to accept. For any changes that are agreed to following that, you'd get another changed notification.
Spread those out every couple of weeks. Just all in one.
There may be a couple of 5-minute breaks while I get a drink of water.
Any other questions to do with the meeting schedule for 2024? Can I please have a mover and a seconder for the recommendations? By Councillor Chase, seconded by Councillor Johns. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. So the next item, report is 9.8, which is a leave of absence for Her Worship the Mayor. And this one's going to be taken by Ellie Dunn.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Under our standing orders, leave of absence for councillors can be approved directly by the Mayor, and by approving a leave of absence for a period of time, that gives you an automatic apology for any meetings that are held during your absence. So no one has to remember to put in your apology. For the Mayor, however, standing orders requires that the request for leave of absence comes before council for resolution. And if granted by council, she will have an automatic apology for each meeting that is held while she's away. And we won't need to do an extra apology at each meeting that she's not in.
Awards.
Just for clarification through you, Deputy Mayor Irina. So Ellie, we accepted Mayor Tracy's apology today because this paper had been put to us. Should this have been put last month, or because we can't really stop her going, she's gone. Means is if the council does not approve the leave of absence, then we will bring an apology request at each meeting for the council to resolve.
I'm just trying to understand that the process and what was.
The trip was arranged quite quickly.
Right. Okay.
Any other questions? Can I have someone please remove the recommendation in a councillor Ward's, seconded by councillor Long. All those in favour, please say aye. All those against, carried. Okay, so we've just got a bit of correspondence. So we had a letter from Brodie Bennett thanking us for our the money we gave him when he went to Sydney to play in the Trans-Tasman squash series, and he did really well. He played number 1 in the junior boys team, and he won 7 out of the 10 matches, which was great to see. And I know Brodie through playing squash myself, and he's a great young athlete, and I can see he's got a great future in the squash circles. And he's moving his way up through the B grade, and he's going to take a little while to get to A, but he'll get there. Councillor Johns.
Where is that? Clinton Bennett's son. Oh, right.
Yes, that's Clinton Bennett's son. And Clint's a good B grade squash player as well, so he's taken after his father. Okay, I think that's the only so can we move that we receive that letter from Brodie Bennett, Councillor Gilmore, seconded by Councillor Sutherland. Okay, portfolio reports. Has anyone got any portfolio reports for the past month? Councillor Gilmore, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I guess the main report I want to make is my attendance to the Hamilton Motor Show in my capacity as Deputy Chair of the Community and Wellbeing Committee, which Economic Development falls under. So I was there over the weekend, a really, really great show, and it was really helpful to see, I guess, how we are doing some of those activities when we go out and we try and market our district. I did just want to put on record a special thank you to Colin Young and Carol Wilton. They both were incredible ambassadors for our district. It's a huge amount of work standing on a stall for 3 days. And they were tireless in their promotion of our district. So I just want to make sure I put that on record. I'm not sure if you want to talk about the future of local government or myself, but yeah. Deputy Mayor Erina and I also had the opportunity to attend the Future for Local Government conference. So it was 2 days. More information will be coming out to the group. What we did is sat there and ranked the recommendations. No decisions were made. That wasn't the purpose of the session. It was really just to get an idea of where people felt, to see if consensus could be achieved. Local Government New Zealand have undertaken to collate all of that information so everyone can see that, including the comments. So we all went through, wrote on post-it notes what our thoughts were, and that'll be made available to all councillors. So just wanted to mention that as well.
Yes, Brian.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Just further to the future for local government work. So I have been requested to do a presentation to council on that. So your learnings will be invaluable in terms of supporting that presentation. So I have done it. I'm just I have completed the presentation just in the right time. So I'll talk with Ali and probably when me Tracy gets back, but all that information, if you do have it, if you can send it through to me as well, and I can incorporate that into the work I've done.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, we do have some information, but we're waiting for the report, hopefully from LGNZ, because quite a few of the decisions were pretty close with how people ranked them. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Councillor Johns.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Erina, could I ask Councillor Gilmore, is it true that he was fined at Lions on Monday night?
I believe we have Chatham House rules, so that should be a fine for you, Councillor Johns.
Councillor Wallace.
Yeah, just annoyingly, this roadshow and the promotion of the Tararua District, how many years has that been going?
Deputy Mayor, I'll have to come back to you. It's certainly been since I've been here, but it's been 3 years, so we have gone every year. Probably 5. Yeah.
And supplementary. Yeah, and do we have any data on of these events? Because I know I'm involved in other circles, and they seem to quickly use money up to go to these events, but we don't have any data of what they actually perform. I know it would be hard to gauge, but yeah, it's just trying to hit the mark. I know we get a good feeling thing and a responsibility maybe, and probably that with the local government thing going forward, with especially with what Mayor Brown's been saying lately. Because how many in the local in the LGN, you've got it. There's 3 or 4 out, not in that group now. Is that correct? So there's 2 questions there. So maybe we could deal with the first one. We're getting good mileage on this job.
I'll go to Councillor Gilmore because he may better answer the first one with your experience up there.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. It's probably more anecdotal of the number of people that we spoke to, and I guess what jumped out at me hugely was, and this may or may not be a surprise to some people, but I would say the majority of people that we spoke to, when asked, wouldn't be able to tell us where our district was, and that's both disappointing, but also a huge opportunity for those type of events, because we don't have a lot of sort of traditional accommodation in our district, not a huge amount. So bringing people in with their own accommodation strategically is quite a smart thing to do. I'm with you though, and I actually do agree with you that numbers and statistics really do help inform value. And I know just from some of my conversations, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but there is a whole lot of thought going into what metrics we could capture at those type of events. So anecdotally, it felt very, very, very valuable. And yeah, I think that we have other ways to be able to show that evidence through to our community and through to this council, if that helps answer that.
Thanks, Councillor Gilmore. And I know there were some big days on your feet up there, so thank you for representing us. Councillor Sutherland, did you have an idea of how many years it's been going for?
I was just going to give you a bit of history lesson, really, but a little bit of this is the motorhome show we're talking about, which was sort of been driven by Shirley Hull, really, wasn't it? And I think in my time in the council, but going back further than that, the business, my real estate company that I'm involved with, we've been going to the Auckland Home Show for some decades. In the times when we couldn't get anybody to come here, it was trying to promote the district. And then we were a little bit, we had a bit to do with the district council coming on board, and we helped them share sites in the Auckland Home Show for a few years. And that was quite positive. It was very positive for us. We've since given up because the world's changed, and so did the district council gave up. But we used to have some statistics. We used to keep a record, both us, but the council did, of how many visitor packs handed out and how many inquiries came from that. And there was some statistical evidence of the home show stuff, but that's now stopped. And I don't think the district council's gone to the Auckland Home Show for a while now, but I can't answer about the motorhome show. But I do know we used to have our own statistics, but the council were doing them. We used to help man each other's stands a little bit, property brokers and the council for a few years. But then we didn't need to promote the district because the world changed and things like that. But that's where this has sort of come on from. And our previous manager of that department, what's his name? Mark Maxwell, was very, very strong in attending those functions. And I don't know what the costs were over the years, but he was a great man for the Auckland Home Show and also the motorhome shows. But there was some evidence of the Auckland Home Show. I'm not sure what happens with this. I think there is.
Thank you for that, Councillor Sutherland. Councillor Johns.
Talking to Carol Walton yesterday, and she mentioned that there was something like over 960 discussions and or forms that they filled out, people filled out. Is that right?
Just in response to that, there will be the information that Councillor Sutherland was talking about. So the number of people the number of packs given out, the number of people entering into a competition and the like. I think that we potentially could do more with that as well. But I know that's something that Colin was talking about being quite keen on as well. But that does sound right. It was a huge number of conversations and people that we spoke to, and a very, very, very warm reception. So, we had 3 tables set up, and they were pretty much most of the time we had people at each table wanting to talk about the district and what we do. So it was an exciting opportunity to go out and talk up our district. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the formal report. I can only just talk again anecdotally.
Thank you, Councillor Gilmore. And I think that's a great way to promote our district. And like you said, a lot of them obviously hadn't been to here, or they didn't know where Tararua was. So we might have a lot of people touring down our way. And before I go on to my portfolio reports, is there anyone else who'd like to speak? So so just looking at the past month, we had a few things on actually. The Wet Crow Awards evening, we had that. We had our winners, Sarah Millam, second was Charlotte Radcliffe, and third was a tie between Dras Huata and Jasmine Brandon. So all those students in the Dannevirke area do a lot of community work and work towards the values that we look for in the Wet Crow Awards. We also had a highly successful Kapahaka Festival on the 14th. We had lots of groups from outside the district and the local schools competing throughout the day. So it was a great event, and good to see it back up and running after COVID as well, because that's our first one for a couple of years. And we also had, of course, last Monday, a lot of us attended the citizenship ceremony with 13 residents being sworn in as New Zealand residents, and also one of our own, Raj, being sworn in. So yeah, that was a great event and great ceremony, sorry, that a lot of us were involved in. Okay, so we'll go, we don't have any mayoral matters. And there were no extra items on the agenda. So I'll do the council prayer and close. I'll do a karakia and close the meeting. So after the meeting, we've just got a bit of CE time to go through a couple of things. So don't run away. Nā mai e runga, pau ko te pai. Nā mai e tānei, nā hau, nā kita pota, no e te ao. Ko ranganui ki runga, ko papatua nuku ki raro. Ka pota ko te whao, ko te ao marama, tuturu, whakawhita, whakamoa. Kia tina, tina, haumie, huie, tai kie. Thank you.